Welcome back to Match Night. Fantastic Forge. The dynasty continues. Kyle Becker to Noah Jensen in the first half as they took on Valor in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Jensen's third goal in his last 3 games, 5 and 6 overall for the Forge FC midfielder. Valor, it was a critically important game for them in terms of their playoff hopes. A scrappy effort. Tassi Mordekudis, field goal good. Wrong sport being played at Princess Auto Stadium. Loic Quemi active throughout this one. Cuts inside, says, whoop, see you later to 1, 2. Third defender, see you later. Perhaps could have taken another touch. Khalilat makes his straightforward save. And that was about it. Forge, professional effort. They are your regular season winners in the Canadian Premier League with 2 weeks to spare. And this is theirs for the 2024 season, the Canadian Premier League Shield. Gareth Wheeler, Jordan Wilson, Christian Jack with you. This is the big story. Congratulations goes out to Forge for the second time. They win a CPL regular season. This is the 6th season of the Canadian Premier League. They've won a trophy every season that they've played. The dynasty is well earned. This club continues to set the standard in the Canadian Premier League as well. And for the second time in their history in back-to-back seasons, they'll be hosting the 1 versus 2 game that will be played on October 27th. Another fantastic year for Forge FC, KJ. Now it's become a little bit of the expectation that they're going to go on and win it, which seems a little bit audacious considering Cavalry and Atletico Ottawa, other teams have been able to step up and win regular seasons, but really it's Forge who are the standard bearers.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I think, special to see when a team is completely already in the midst of a dynasty. We have to mention Cavalry did it last year. For them to be able to find ways to consistently reinvent themselves and find ways to consistently remotivate themselves. And this right here, sitting right in front of us, this beautiful shield, credit to the league that they were able to put this together, helped motivate them. It was no longer a regular season, that we're sitting here going, oh, just the top 4 making the playoffs, it doesn't matter. Look at what we're talking about. We're talking about a fantastic battle for 5th. We're talking about silverware being handed out. We're talking about, in a couple of weeks, 4 games being played at the same time as the league continues to evolve and professionalize. And this is what Forge have accomplished. I think, the fact that you could make the argument that this team might be the best Forge team we've seen.
You think so?
That you could make that argument.
Yeah.
I just think says a lot about their continued motivation every single time to improve on what they needed to do.
And you talk about improve. On the back end of that, worst season last season in terms of 28 games for Forge was last year. And you ask anyone in their camp, they said, we cannot have a season like that. Bobby Smirniotis talked about it. They cannot have another season. They brought in certain players. But everyone who's a Forge player, who's been there from the beginning, who's come in maybe in 2020, has increased their game. They stepped up and played better football. So that, for me, is what stands out. Is you had a little bit of a dip, even though they still won the North Star Cup last season. But this season have been there. Their home form, 11-1-1, has been exceptional. They've stepped up in competitions. Probably just a bit hard done by losing to TFC in the Can Champ. But everything else about this Forge team, you like the way they're playing and their progressive football.
They evolve every year, and it seems like there's new stars every season, and they lose players, but then they replace them. Look, they've had the least changes in terms of players coming in and out of all teams in the Canadian Premier League, but they've lost some critical players over recent years as well. Let's hear from Bobby Smirniotis, their manager, about what this means to him and this club, the fact that they are the Canadian Premier League Shield winners in 2024.
Yeah, right now, we go at it and our expectation is that we win trophies. I think years from now, we'll be able to sit back, or I'll be able to sit back and really think that this is quite a thing we've done here. This is a club now in 6 years with 5 trophies. And if we look around in North American sport, and why I say North American sport, that's where you have roster caps, salary caps, where everything is played on an even field. Everyone's got the same ability to do everything. I think it's quite special what we've been doing at Forge FC.
It's Bobby's world, and we're just living in it. Look, I think Bobby Smirniotis in Canadian soccer circles, he was a known commodity, but for the wider sporting culture in this country, before the Canadian Premier League, he wasn't an established name. Now look at this resume. Look what this club has been able to accomplish under his leadership. Jordan, what's impressed you the most about Bobby Smirniotis, his reign and his latest accomplishment, winning the regular season this year.
Yeah, before Bobby was known to me as a Sigma guy, right? League One, but the way that he's just come into the Canadian Premier League and led Forge FC, he's just been a masterclass. We talk about him and around the league, people talk about the beard and how he's a philosopher. He picks the right times to elevate his team and add. Everyone knows, even when I played in the league, you know Forge are going to keep the ball. They're the only team that 95% of the time play the ball out of the back from goal kicks. Yep. You know the pressure's going to come, but they still find ways and margins to go and own games. And that, for me, is what is so impressive. When you know something is coming, but you still end up elevating your game, that just shows that you're a dynasty.
Yeah, fans in Hamilton know that they can, when they buy a ticket, they're going to be entertained. It's going to be proper football, right? To answer your question, for me, it's mentality.
That's huge for you.
It's mentality. You know, I cannot speak highly enough about, for those people who don't get to see it, to be around this team as often as I am, to watch them train, to see them show up every day. What do we see in the Canadian Premier League? We see a lot of young players, and we see mistakes, and we see the ability for them to learn and grow. What have we seen this weekend? We've seen mental lapses. We've seen unnecessary penalties given away, ridiculous red cards. When do you see Forge do that?
Very rare.
Very, very rare, right? And even bigger, when the lights are the brighter and the game gets bigger,
come to play.
They come to play.
Every time.
And they're the mentality monsters of the Canadian Premier League. And that's why they win. And that, until you reach that level, if you're at home right now thinking, how do we beat them? You cannot give them an inch mentally. You cannot. You have to be ready. You cannot be moaning about referees. You've got to be match them for every single moment in the mental game if you want to go toe-to-toe for them. They've got that, and now they're going to try and get the double.
It's impressive to watch, meeting him day one and then seeing where he and this team has come from here. It's just incredible to see. And the fact that in a season like this, where not only do they win the Canadian Premier League Shield, they beat CF Montreal, they beat TFC in the Canadian Championship in individual games. Of course, they ended up losing in an aggregate tie where it was 2-2 and the away goals rule was still in play. We'll leave that alone for now. But there's been so many star performers within this team that it's difficult to pick out who might be their most valuable player or the most important player. KJ, for you, is there a player in this Forge squad that deserves a little bit of a hat tip from where you sit?
I think the most valuable player is Becker. I'll give a hat tip to Daniel Parra because I like balance in my team. And the reason why they're balanced now is because of Parra and Borges and the left foot. And when you've got those players who can play in the game and bring back... They played all last season without a notable left foot player on the fullback. And he just makes so much difference, guys. Not only in the attack, but defensively. He spreads the field, and it allows players like Borges in the half space, Schwanier, Poku to shine when he was there. Because of players, when you defend a Parra, you've got to stretch your defense. And for me, it's balance. And the wide players, Parra, Schwanier, Borges, have been exceptional. Baddy Banger at times. So I'll give a hat tip to the Mexican left back.
Just to piggyback off that, Kwame Awuah, great, phenomenal left-footed player that could play inside as well. I always thought, I'm like, you're not going to get one of those. You're not. You have a Kwame Awuah that's moved on and then playing in a different league. Parra has come in. He can play left back. He can come inside. Everything that you want to do, that's the Forge way of playing, he excels at. I think also, too, I have to give a shout-out for me. I know Kyle Becker, for me, is the barometer for Forge, really the way they press and move. But Tristan Borges had a horrendous season last year. Horrendous. Hurt. Even looking at the finals, that was the bright spark. I remember the day before.
He was a sub in the final.
Exactly. I remember the day before, match day -1. And he was the first. He was the first one coming in. He wasn't having fun. He wasn't enjoying his football last season for whatever reason that might be. This year, he has been a man possessed. One thing on his mind to go and change game. One thing on his mind to go enjoy his football. And that left foot is sweet. He is back. For me, he's a shoe-in to MVP as well.
Shoe-in as MVP?
In my opinion.
Interesting. I love players that fly under the radar like Malcolm Duncan who've stepped up. I love those stories. But for me, I'm answering my own question here. When the team was on a little bit of a wobble, their number 9s weren't producing, they were out injured, who did Bobby Smirnios turn to? Kwesi Poku. He was the player that kick-started their season. And although he's not here anymore, without Poku and his intervention, so many of them early in the season where he went on and was the match winner. I'm not sure if they build the momentum and get to the point where they are today without the performances of Poku. So even though he's moved on and he's doing well in Belgium right now, his footprints are all over this regular season title for Forge. So I think it spoke volumes that after the game today, no mass celebration. It was very professional. They have their eyes on another North Star Cup, and they have a chance to host back-to-back years as they take on, well, whoever finishes number 2. And the winner of that game will go on to host the Canadian Premier League final. The match is officially going to be played on October 27th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. Get your tickets, or you can watch right here at One Soccer.